Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Exciting day. Not your normal signing day like in years past, but an exciting day. It's been a hectic first month, but we've accomplished a lot. Top priorities for us was really twofold. Number one is developing relationships with our players that are currently on our roster. And second thing was solidifying those guys that signed in December. And a lot of credit to our staff. And when I say staff, I'm not talking about just our assistant coaches, but everybody that's involved in recruiting. When a young person comes on our campus, we're able to hold on to all 18 guys that signed, that were part of that December signing class, and had little to no attrition on our current football team. So a lot of credit to all those individuals. Our second priority was really to fill some slots of what we felt like were immediate needs on our current roster. Relationships and recruiting are critical, and if you look at the guys we've added over not only today but transfer quarterback, those are individuals we had long relationships with. And today's about the signees. It's about this recruiting class. I know you all have a lot of questions about staffing, about current players, and all those type of things. I promise you we're going to give you an opportunity to ask those, but today is going to be about recruiting. So I appreciate y'all being here, and with that, I'm going to open up to questions about this recruiting class.
You'll start with those 16 December signees, and do you almost have to re-recruit them? How did you approach keeping them in the fold?
Yeah, well, the way we approached it is look at them as new recruits, without a doubt. We want people that want to be here. We thought it was critical. It's a unique situation. I think it's only happened one other time at the Power 5 level. I think when Kevin Sumlin was hired at Arizona, he had a similar situation in the fact that a group of players signed in December under a previous coach, and then he took the job after that signing day. So not a lot of precedent. So what we did is we went about re-recruiting those guys. And either myself or someone on our staff went and visited each one of those student athletes, and then we were able to host those guys through the NCAA rules on a second official visit for most of them. And so just by building a relationship, not only with them, but with their families or the people that are really important to them, they felt comfortable with West Virginia. They felt comfortable with a lot of the pieces of why they chose West Virginia. We're still here, and we're still common with our staff, and they just needed some reassurance and just to be around and spend time with our staff. So that's how we approached it. And like I said, a lot of credit to our staff. We were able to keep all those guys, and I'm excited about them. I thought the previous staff did a really good job identifying talent, and not only on the playing field, but also academically, and these are good kids.
Noticed you got 3 defensive players. Was that coincidental, or was that by need, or how did you determine 3 guys?
So the way we kind of started this is, as you meet with your players and you watch a little bit of video, really honestly not a ton. Had some of our young coaches put together basically kind of a highlight, low light tape on the guys that were currently on our team. So tried to get a vision of what some needs were. And we need some, we signed a lot of receivers in the December signing date. We're in a little bit odd situation in our defensive backfield where only lost a couple, but we got a lot of guys that are going to be seniors. So we felt like we needed to add some guys in the defense secondary, and we did. And then defensive linemen are something you can't have enough defensive linemen. So I thought it was critical too. Y'all can do the math. We've got 3 spots left open in this class. I think the mistake that a lot of people make when you take a job, when you make a transition and you're trying to do your first recruiting class, is you really reach, or you sign guys that you don't know about. The recruiting process is so long now. It's upwards of 2 years, and part of that 2-year process, there's usually quite a few in-person evaluations where you see a kid practice, or you see a kid play, or even you have him in camp and you see him in live evaluations, and you get to know him on multiple campus visits. Well, you don't have that opportunity when you take, especially in a different geographic region. So we were careful. We do have 3 open spots. You guys are going to learn about this with us. I'm always looking for ways to improve our roster. We have 2 signing days, but we're always looking to improve our roster. And I think it's important that you have some open spots where if something happens, you're able to add a critical piece.
Have you decided what needs that may still be there where you'll be looking in particular with these last 3?
Yeah, well, I think that we have 2 and I'm careful how to answer this because we've only really had 1 team workout with our team. We worked out yesterday morning. We're going to work out tomorrow morning as well. can't do any necessarily football specific work with them, but we do get an opportunity to see how they follow directions, see what kind of leadership we have, how do they change directions, what kind of explosiveness do they have, and some different agility drills. I do know this just from a scholarship number standpoint. We have some depth issues on the offensive line and the defensive line.
Coach, when you got here, you said you were going to really focus on West Virginia and focus on the region. How did you hit the ground running on that, and how successful did you think you were?
Well, I think a lot of that, and we're going to do that. Whether it shows in this recruiting class or not, it's to be determined, honestly. We're excited about Kerry Martin. You know, I think he's a great kid and really looking forward from Capital, really looking forward to working with him, and glad he's part. He's actually an early enrollee, so he's already here. But a lot of it was just getting in schools in the state. You know, if you look at it, and I think you can talk to high school coaches in the state, we were able to get into a ton of high schools here in the state, develop relationships with those guys. That's something that we'll continue to do so. And, you know, whatever happens later today, and we've made a pretty valiant run.
When you sit with your staff and you evaluate how you did recruiting, obviously this class is to be determined. You don't know that. When you go back and you look back, is there a target number? Like how many contributors did you look at to gauge how successful you were?
Well, you want to obviously. No, I think you better be better than that. Yeah, we better be better than half. I think what you do is you hear people, and throughout college football today, you know, however many Division I coaches are, they're having these press conferences, and you're gonna hear, "Hey, we're excited about them, best class," and you know all those superlatives. And a lot of times you feel like that is the correct answer, but the truth of the matter won't be known for 3 or 4 years down the road. I think what you do is you have to have critical evaluations. So what we do is we have a staff retreat in the spring, so we go and that's one thing is we do is we evaluate the last 3 or 4 recruiting classes. Now, obviously, we only have one to evaluate. We won't have a whole lot of data to do that on. But you have to constantly evaluate what went right, but also what went wrong. And I think you look at the geographic fit. You look if you take any at risk. You know, did it work out? Okay, what went wrong? But I think you got to constantly evaluate that. And there is a science to it, without a doubt.
You know, trying to evaluate the current players to assess future needs. How much more difficult is that because you haven't seen them doing things that you might change? Well,
you get a good grasp of what they can do athletically, and that's the biggest thing. You know, the schematic changes are, you know, I think you'll have an opportunity to ask Vic the same thing. And offensively, defensively, and special teams, we're going to put our kids in the best situation to be successful. So whatever their strengths are, we're going to steer our schemes toward fitting their strengths. But really, that's why that we have 3 open spots, quite frankly. We could have gone out and used those. There's probably players that we could have signed. But I think you got to be real careful because we want to give ourselves the best opportunity to win next fall. And I think we're better served by holding on those spots till we see what our true product is in spring ball.
Your last staff leaned heavily on various forms of transfers. You didn't seem to have a ton of those at Troy. What's your philosophy on grad transfers, which you've already got one here?
Yeah,
JUCOs and just regular transfers.
So I think that you're always looking to improve your roster, which I already said. I think transfers is one way. I think junior college recruiting done the correct way can really be fruitful. And what I mean by that, I think that there's a couple different ways you recruit junior college. You know, one way is you realize you have a need in the fall and you just go out, whether it's a couple weeks in the December signing period or a couple weeks in January, and you try to just go find the best player and you don't really know a whole lot about them, or you go through and you treat it like high school recruiting where you get to know them over the course of a year. A lot of times you track them in high school and then you follow them to whatever junior college they're at, and you have a long relationship with them and you understand, you know, why they're there. That's the way we choose to do it. Quite frankly, I think if you look at our success rate at Troy with junior college transfers, it was extremely high. Now we've got to figure out how this university works. But I think when you're recruiting junior college, you have to have a longer relationship than just a couple weeks. And I think it's the same when you're looking at any transfer. You know, Austin Kendall is a prime example. So we're excited to have Austin. Austin is a guy that I had a previous relationship with his family. We recruited Austin when I was at the University of Kentucky as the offensive coordinator. His brother Ryan played for me my last year there as a receiver at the University of Kentucky, knew his mom and dad. So when he became available, that made sense. You know, I knew him personally, knew his family, and I think there has to be a relationship with those transfers. You know, you just don't take them because they're available.
How important was it from a depth standpoint to bring in a graduate transfer with Trey playing baseball and lately maybe missing
Well,
some practice?
I think that was as big a factor as anything. We only had 2 on scholarship, you know, so I got a lot of trust in Jack Allison, and I like Trey. Trey's playing baseball, so his availability in the spring, depending on how baseball's going, could be limited. And we got to have more guys in that room. You know, I think that's college football. You know, there's so many, the game's played so fast in this league. You play so many plays. You better have at least three quarterbacks in that room who are capable of playing. So that was probably need number one, is we needed to add a quarterback, and I thought we were very fortunate to get a guy in Austin who I feel like has been really well schooled, played in a couple different high school programs where the level of coaching is at a high level. He was with Lincoln the last couple years, and I have a lot of respect for him and his ability to teach. He sat in a room with 2 Heisman Trophy winners. I think that's important. He's got a quick release, really strong arm. He can create plays with his feet. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a runner, but I think he's a good enough athlete that he creates plays with his feet. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great competition as we move in the spring into fall camp.
What is it about these 3 men that you felt that you wanted here?
Yeah, I'll just talk about all 3 of these guys individually. So if you look at Jordan Jefferson, Jordan JJ is from Navarre, Florida. And a guy that Navarre, so you'll know geographically, is about 2 hours away from Troy. So he's a kid that we've really known since he was a freshman, end of his freshman year, going into a sophomore year in high school. He's a big physical thing that I like about him. He's got a calm demeanor. He's never too high. He's never too low. Great family. His dad, you'll see him. His dad looks like he needs to be playing. He could play some D-line for us right now too. He's a strong guy, but a great family, and he got better every year. You know, if you look at his junior film, it's really good. Look at his senior year, and you understand why his recruiting really exploded like it did, especially in the last 6 weeks. So long relationship. We've had him in camp. We've seen him multiple times live. Our defensive line coach, Jordan Leslie, was his lead recruiter, and he's a guy that I think has an opportunity to be a plus player on the defensive line in this league. And he's versatile. He can play nose or the 3 technique. If you look at Tavion or Tay Mayo, he's from Lee County, Georgia. At Troy, we had two Lee County guys on our team, 2 really good players from Lee County. Vic Coney, our defensive coordinator, he recruited that school at Troy. They've won, I think, back-to-back state championships. So I'm pretty sure that's correct. Dean Fabrizio's the head coach. They play at a high level. We've known about Tay for a long time. I think he actually watched a couple games of ours at Troy when he came to watch his friends. And so we knew about him, and the logo switch was very effective. And he had a relationship with the previous staff. He'd actually taken an official visit here, so he liked West Virginia. So we were able to close that late, and that was an important pickup for us. And if you look at, we're really rising seniors now at that corner position, and he's athletic. He can run. He's going to have an opportunity to come in and compete right away, and he has a chance to be a starter here for several years. And then the last guy is a young man by the name of Rasheen Lynn, and Rasheen is 6'4 plus, almost 6'5". He's got a ton of skill set. He has as much upside as anybody in this class. Played a lot of receiver and DB in high school. We're going to start him off in the secondary as a safety. As you all know, you can't have too many DBs in the Big 12. He's a guy that has length. And we can try as hard as we want to coach it, but you either have length or you don't, and he's big, and he's long, and he has an opportunity to play that center field position on defense and really cover a lot of ground in the back end. So excited about him.
Curious, of the guys that you inherited in December, did you have any prior relationships with any of them?
Yeah,
or did
so
you have to introduce yourself to all of them?
Yeah, no, the guys in the Southeast, you know, at Troy it was a unique recruiting. We really only recruited about a 4.5 hour radius, so that's unique in college football. I mean, probably one of the most unique situations, really. But we did. Most of these guys from the Southeast, like if it's Taj Austin, who's already here. We knew about him at Co-Lin, really productive player. Jared Bartlett is a kid that we identified a year ago in spring as a guy that could be kind of a Mike linebacker, edge, rusher. So we liked him. We saw him. I think Jordan Leslie watched him practice last spring. If you talk about going down to Tony Mathis, I laughed when I called Tony after getting this job. I said, man, most of the time players come to coaches. You know what I mean? Like this coach had to go to the player because Tony was like our number one running back guy at Troy forever. And, of course, he got multiple Power 5 offers, so we didn't have a whole lot of success getting him at Troy. But he's a guy that I love the way he ran, so we had a relationship with him. Obviously knew his game. Drayshawn Miller, a corner that was from Kennesaw, that went junior college, who's here now on campus. We'd known about him when he was in high school. Winston Wright is a guy that we saw multiple times live I think he was at 2 different satellite camps I was at over the summer. So we knew about him, and we had a relationship with him as well. So several of these guys, Nick Troy Fortune's another guy that we knew about being in the Southeast. So a lot of these guys we did. We had relationships, either myself personally or our assistant coaches had a relationship with those guys. So that was definitely a positive.
Guys you didn't know, how did you go about assessing them to make sure they fit what you want to do?
Yeah, well, it wasn't as much about assessing as I felt like our role was they'd already made decisions, and I try to put myself in their shoes, honestly, is, okay, here's a young man. I always talk about in recruiting. Last night I talked to all these guys that were going to sign today, and I told them, I said, hey, tomorrow's a big day. It's a culmination of your high school career, but also it's just the start of your college career. And you kind of flip the page, and you kind of go into what's next mode. What's in the past is in the past. It's kind of what's next. And all these guys that signed in December had already flipped that page. And so, you try to put yourself in their shoes and understand that their whole world just got shook up. Coaching change had happened. They didn't ask for it. So what we did is we just went – to me it wasn't about us making a decision. It was about us investing in that relationship because they'd already made the decision. Athletically, I think all of them fit what we want to do. It was about making sure that they felt comfortable with the situation here. Now, we weren't going to hold any of them hostage. We wanted them all to be here. But we wanted to make sure that they wanted to be here, and we gave them that opportunity by not only coming to visit, but also us going to their territory as well.
Given your statement about where you recruited at Troy in that footprint, were some of your assistant coaching hires based on, knowing that you're going to have to expand that a little bit here?
Well, we are going to have to expand, and I think, and we can talk about this here. We'll do something media-wise when we kind of announce the assistant coaches as a group. But I think what you'll see from a recruiting philosophy here is going to be, all the states that touch West Virginia, all the states that touch West Virginia, we want to have a really strong recruiting presence. And this is going to be everybody within our staff is going to have a primary recruiting area within that geographic footprint. And then we'll go in to the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, probably into some Mississippi junior colleges and some Kansas junior colleges where we have really strong relationships and a good brand. West Virginia has a good brand, and then we're obviously well known from a coaching standpoint as well.
I know you made the junket through West Virginia. How soon will you go out and identify the best schools in Pittsburgh and get in there and meet the coaches in D.C. and the surrounding
I tried to do that in January. As we tried to be as efficient as possible as we made through in January. I think I was out every day but 2 that legally could be. Weather got us one day. But got in several high schools here in West Virginia, spent a day in Pittsburgh, spent 2 in D.C., didn't get into Ohio as much this time as I will when I have the next opportunity. But we did. We were all in that footprint as much as we possibly could while trying to chase the signees and going to see the guys that signed in December as well. That's the thing. Like, people don't think about it, but really the probably the biggest disadvantage of getting into a situation late is in January. What most of our competitors are doing is they're probably going to sign 2 to 5 today at the most, but they're 2020 and 2021 recruiting. Okay. Well, what we did, we tried to get as much as in many schools and chasing as many 20 and 21 kids as we could. But our primary function was to make sure the December guys were in good shape and trying to secure the signees that we did sign. So we're a little bit, as crazy as it sounds, we're sitting here in February and we're probably a little bit behind on that, definitely on the 20 class, but even the 21 class.
And how different is it to be out from under the shadow of Alabama and Auburn and your recruiting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll say that. It's not something that Troy really thought about a whole lot. It was kind of what it was. Weren't necessarily going to go head to head and beat the Alabama and the Auburns. That what we were trying to do is those schools were recruiting nationally, so we were trying to really fit and make us have a really strong geographic footprint right there in Alabama. But I think being the state here and having a strong brand within this geographic footprint is critical. We feel like that we can compete and win against anybody. And, if we do our job and we're diligent and build relationships, and that we should have as good a chance as anybody in West Virginia and all the states that surround it.
And Neal, this isn't a staff question, but it kind of is. Off the field people, you've added a bunch of, I don't know what label you would use, but like support people for recruiting and on-campus stuff. And it's quite a few, but I'm just curious your philosophy for that and what they do and what needs they fit for you.
Yeah, so again, we'll probably answer. I'll do a better job of answering this later, okay? And not trying to dodge your question by any means. I think what we're trying to do is be competitive with the people we're going against. And recruiting is so, and this, right? So recruiting it's such a long process now, such an in-depth process that I think you need multiple people. You need a recruiting division almost within your staff, and that's what we're trying to establish here. We've got we've hired some, we made some hires. We've got some additions to make, and hopefully we'll do that here in the near future.
With as much experience as Vic has over the decades, what do those evaluation conversations look like? 'Cause I'm sure there's been a player where this is a guy, and you were like, as the final say, maybe a little wishy-washy.
Yeah.
What do those evaluations look like as you guys discuss?
Yeah, there's a lot of trust involved. Honestly, we've been together now going on 5 years. If you look at his history and the amount of NFL players he's produced and the production he's had across the board at all the positions within his defensive scheme at all his stops, so there's a lot of trust there. Feel like that as a staff we've done a good job evaluating. Even before I was a head coach, as a coordinator and things like that, we feel like we've done a good job of identifying talent. I always talk about there's three things that you got to do. Number one, you got to be good enough as a player. Because when you're watching tape, if the kid's not good enough, you don't ever get past that. It's either yes or no. So yes, he is. Then it goes to an academic evaluation. Can he be successful? Is he going to be a qualifier? Can he be successful at the college level? So if the answer is no to that, you stop. If the answer is yes to that, then you go to the character question. And then can he make it within our program? Is he the type of guy we want representing our program? So if the answer to those three things is yes, and it's a schematic fit, then that's the guy we go on. But I do, if Vic feels strongly, we've had our disagreements. As the head coach, I got final say. But if he feels really good about a prospect and their evaluation, then he's definitely heard.
Curious about that. What is your approval process? Do you go the position coach, the coordinator? How does that go about?
Yeah, so it's a thinning out. What it does is you got the initial evaluation, and then we're going to be an area recruiting staff, okay? And what I mean by that is everybody's going to have geographic areas, and you're going to go through your area, find the top prospects within that area. You'll be the main recruiter, and then the position coach will be involved as secondary recruiter, and as the head coach, you're always involved, okay? And that's the way we go about it. And I'll have final say. Obviously, I want those position coaches to have a lot of input between that. In their rooms. Always tell me, don't complain about the people in your room. Now you chose them. Don't come complaining to me about not having players if you chose them, right? So that's how we'll go about it.
You work the numbers yourself? Or
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we'll work with Brian Bennett, who you'll meet if you haven't, our director of player personnel, and we'll work and figure out those numbers and what they look like.
Not necessarily a signing day question, but what's your philosophy on early official visits?
Probably too early to tell, honestly, and don't have a feel for them just yet. I want to kind of get here in the spring, and get a feel for what's a spring game crowd look like, because I think that can be a huge benefit if we're well supported on the spring game. okay, which is going to be April 13th at 1 o'clock. If anybody's there you go. But it's and then how in the summer, you know, I think you'll see fewer of them in this initial recruiting cycle until I get a good feel for everything that's here in Morgantown.
You mentioned you have 3 spots left. Definitely fill all 3 scholarships, and do they have to be immediate need guys?
No, it's to be determined. Yeah, we want to try to find the 3 best players. You know, if we don't, then we'll push them over, and that means we can sign up to 28 the next class.
Jefferson's 6'4", 300. I imagine there's not too many of them who were kind of highly recruited close to signing day.
Yeah.
When
It got interesting here late, even as late as last night. Yeah.
Yeah, so the urgency that's involved there, but also, if it's relief is the right word, having at least a relationship where you're not coming in as like a scavenger at the last second.
You know,
Balance there for you?
It was. I think that's really what got us over the hump. And I think there was there was a lot of trust level there between Coach Leslie and his family and myself, just because, you know, we known him for a long time, and that was a definite benefit. The other thing too is you go through recruiting, so many decisions are made off junior tape, and what happens, especially late in the process, whether other schools lose people or things like that, they go back and really evaluate the senior tape, or in coaching transitions they go back, and I think people went back and watched his senior tape and were like, wow, you know, here's a kid that's one of the best, if not the best defensive lineman that's available.
What about preferred walk-ons? What's your philosophy on that? What do you see happening?
Well, I think if you look at our roster, Tony, and that's a great question, first of all, because I always feel like this is as a guy that went through that route at the University of Kentucky and earned a scholarship is I think those guys are really the glue of your football team. And there's a lot of passion in that, especially guys that are in state that earn a preferred walk-on opportunity or just walk-on in general. I think you can go through our roster right now and you can see a lot of evidence of that. Guys that have really worked their way up, and whether it being successful offense, defense, or special teams. So what we're doing is we're identifying those guys. There's some guys that have committed to us as preferred walk-ons. We're excited about that. Can't talk about them today. But that's something, our walk-ons here, if you look at the success of the walk-ons at West Virginia, that's a legacy that we want to continue for sure.
Coach, it seems like ever since you got here, you've really hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm.
In the month that you've been the head coach, how much time have you spent in Morgantown?
That's funny. I've been here all Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. Now, so the first week I was here the whole week, and the good thing about this is I'm here. Other than I'm speaking at a clinic in Columbus tomorrow night. Other than that, I'm here in Morgantown all week. So, looking forward to getting in a routine. You know, that's the thing. Really getting in a routine here. Family's moving this weekend, so excited to get all us under one roof again.
Have you been able to delegate which members of your staff will recruit what areas?
We're in the process of doing that. And what we'll do is when we announce the staff, that'll be a part of the release. Okay, and then y'all are going to have some question and answer opportunities with those guys too.